been 7 years of broken promises. 7 years of broken promises and abusing human beings who deserve housing. My name is Tafoya, and I had the pleasure of running against Albus Brooks 4 years ago. I have the pleasure of supporting Candy Tabaka against Albus Brooks. I have the pleasure of supporting Debbie Ortega, who fought this ordinance so many years ago. And finally, I had the pleasure of running the Green Roof Ordinance just a few years ago against the same people who are funding the opposition against us. I can tell you we will win. We can win. The power is in the people. Now, we all know that it's Women's History Month, Women Appreciation Month around the globe, and I want to start and interject a few times with some quotes for some of the great civil rights leaders who are women in America. And I want to start with Grace Lee Boggs, who was multiracial, who worked in Detroit, where she was in a multiracial marriage, actually, and she said, "We are the leaders we've been waiting for." Our leaders failed us here, and in return, what we did was bring a citizen-led ordinance forward to the vote of the people so they could look in their hearts and do what the right thing is. Broken promises, no more. People have the right to housing. People have the right to survive. Now I want to start by saying thank you to Andy and Scott and Laura, who own the Oriental Theater, who gave us this space so that we could gather together to fight. So thank you. I also want to thank Rafi and Therese and all the other volunteers and people who are working on this tirelessly. And to all the people who petitioned and worked so hard. Now, citizen-led ordinances aren't easy. This is the second one that I've had the opportunity to work on. When you don't have money, but you have a good idea, the people will respond, I assure you. Yes, I agree with that. And if it's a civil rights issue, we have great attorneys like you who are going to help us push all the way. Now, I'm here to ask you all, and I think you already have, to choose compassion and not fear. Our opposition is choosing fear. They tell us the sky will fall. Well, I can tell you the industry playbook is bullshit. It's the same thing we hear over and over and over again. Too far, too fast, unintended consequences. Well, the unintended consequences of the last action were people's things being stolen, people being awoken in the night, and again, broken promises. So, where does that leave us? And where do we go? Well, Dolores Huerta, she told us, "Si se puede," that we can win on this and that we will. And I ask every single person in this room to tell 5 people, tell 10 people, that 10-person power beats money every time. The people who fund against us are the same people who have the power to do something about it. 10 years ago, we could have done something about it, but the Downtown Partnership chose not to. 7 years ago, the commercial realtors could have done something about it, but they chose not to. The problems that they cite are problems that they cause. I ran on trash, I ran on public restrooms, I ran on housing. Broken promises. They use what they're unwilling to provide against us to dehumanize us. No more. We say now, in 2019, in Denver, Colorado, that housing is a human right and that people have the right to survive. I think most people here know that it could be you, it could be me, it could be a job or a divorce or an illness, that we have no safety net. When we win this fight, we have more work to do for environmental justice, for renters' rights, for fair housing, and for economic employment for all. We've been in this place before. Not that long ago, and it was called the Depression, where we had a cultural depression. where people had nothing, and we put them in housing and we gave them jobs and we did great things like build Red Rocks. For those who don't know, Red Rocks was built by people who needed help, who were given a home and were given a task. And now look at what we can celebrate. Now, these same people are the same people who fought us on cannabis, also a 300. The same people who fought us on green roofs, also a 300. I'd like to go 3 for 3. How about you? 3 for 300. So, we have a great program tonight. You saw a great video. You're going to hear from people who've experienced homelessness. And you're going to hear great musicians who stood up to say, I'll take the call. We have Laura Goldhammer and Esme Patterson in Wheelchair Sports Camp. And even in Wheelchair Sports Camp, we have Kaylin, who's chosen to run for mayor because she believes in these same values. Every great civil rights movement consisted of people who organized and fought for justice. This is Dolores Huerta's words, not mine. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Esme Patterson. Thank you. Hello and welcome again. As I adjust this, my name is Ian Thomas Tafoya, and I told you earlier that I had the pleasure of working on some great campaigns, but the best campaign I've ever worked on in my entire life is, yes, on 300. It might be funny to you because I worked on 300 for green roofs and I worked on 300 for marijuana, but we won on all of those. Now I want to stop for a second and say thank you to my friend who sneaked off here, Jason Flores Williams, the civil rights attorney, who gave his time to fight for people that are not him. Now my mother told me my whole life that I should be a civil rights attorney. So I went to him and I asked him and he says, yeah, do it or keep going up on stage and kicking ass, and I appreciate him telling me that today. Now, I was telling you earlier about women for Women's Month who have been great activists and great things, and I want to circle back to Dolores Huerta, who is a woman that my mother and my father talked a lot about. And one of the amazing things that she said is, people ask, who is a leader? Are you a leader? Am I a leader? A person who does the work is a leader. It's as simple as that. So, we want to say thank you again to Andy and the Oriental and Scott and Laura Goldhammer and Esme Patterson, and we're getting ready for Wheelchair Sports Camp. Woo! Yeah, I hope we get some more cheers before they come out. We're so grateful for artists. I'm an artist. There are many artists in this community who realize the system doesn't value the work that we're doing. People often talk about exposure. You can die from exposure. Artists deserve to be paid for the work that they do. Thank you to these artists who donated their time for this cause. If we could give a hands again for them, I would really appreciate that. I have 2 more things to say before we bring Kaylin out here. One is what I told you earlier, that this is about people power, that we actually have the power, and that I have taken $20,000 against $400,000 with Green Roofs, and we have won, because people know in their heart what is right. I'm asking you today to leave this door with some handbills in your hands and a mission in your heart to go tell 10 people, tell 20 people that human beings deserve the right to survive and that housing is a human right. That this is only the first step. Yes? I appreciate you guys getting excited. I want to do one last thing before I bring out Wheelchair Sports Camp, and I'm a huge believer in call-in response. I think the call-in response is a powerful tool. There was one that happened during the teacher strike that I striked with them. I work for the Black Actors Guild. We voted to strike with them. If they won't pay, shut it down. Can I hear that one time? If they won't pay, shut it down! If they won't pay, shut it down! When I say human, you say right. Human. Right. Human. Right. When I say human, you say right. human.
Rights.
Human.
Rights.
When I say housing, you say housing. Housing.
Housing.
Housing.
Housing.
When I say for, you say for. For.
For.
For.
For.
When I say all, you say all. All.
All.
All.
All.
When I say freedom, you say freedom. Freedom.
Freedom.
Here comes Milshore Sports Camp.